ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
The last 1 month, if you see, the share prices of Gensol Engineering has fallen more than 58%.
Why are the rating firms calling the debt payments as default?
We have two credible credit rating agencies on March 4th coming and downgrading the stock to D.
Statements are consistently being proven wrong,
right,
and transactions are being taken place which are different from what they were originally pictured to be.
The company claimed it would roll out 6,400 electric vehicles. But what it has rolled out is a shocking scam. Funds meant for the project were funneled allegedly back to the promoters, the Junkie brothers. What did the money buy? Not EVs, of course, but a lavish flat in Gurgaon's luxurious DLF Carmelias.
News is not just headlines, it is what impacts you. And news should never be mistaken for noise. What matters is the reality. Accurate, in-depth, and with the right perspective. For over 20 years, I have been a journalist, and never has clarity mattered more than now. At Newsnight, we go beyond the surface. We dissect the details, challenge the narratives, and bring you the unparalleled.
Hello and a very warm welcome to India Matters on Wednesday night. Prime Minister Modi had a 35-minute phone call with President Trump of the United States. They talked about a lot of things. The Prime Minister cleared the air over just how that big ceasefire was arrived at, and it was made very clear to Trump, who's been taking all the credit for it, that this was between India and Pakistan, and it was because of India's military actions that Pakistan literally pleaded for that ceasefire after Operation Sindoor. Well, that was only a phone call, but there is a lunch date planned today, and it's between Trump and, you've already guessed. Friends, in a couple of hours from now, Pakistan Army Chief General Asim Munir, and I will not call him Field Marshal, the man who oversaw Pakistan's military collapse during India's Operation Sindoor, will be enjoying lunch with US President Donald Trump. A general whose forces had to literally plead for a ceasefire is about to be warmly received by the same man who falsely claimed credit for that ceasefire. Now, I know how some of you may be feeling like this is some sort of international insult or a snub to India. Well, you can't be faulted for being surprised at this sudden lunch date between Trump and Asim Munir. But let me explain and put it into context, and maybe you will be able to appreciate this just a little better, like I have been. There may actually be no better glimpse into the desperate underbelly of global geopolitics. This is what it is. This is the dirty game in all its naked glory. Emotions have no seat at this table. All when it comes to Donald Trump. This is what they call realpolitik, served with dessert. The leader of the free world hosting the army chief of a country officially regarded by India as a terrorist state. A man responsible for shielding terror networks, persecuting minorities, and silencing dissent at home. All the things that America claims to be against. Well, he's going to be at Trump's table today. And yet, here he is about to smile and wave for the cameras in Washington when he isn't running from Pakistani hecklers on the streets outside his DC hotel. Now, for those struggling to digest this lunch that's coming up, please accept this truth. Pakistan remains incredibly useful to the United States. Not morally, not ethically, but strategically and financially. And that's really all that matters to the United States. It's a bottomless pit for American military aid, tens of billions in so-called assistance that often loops back to the US military-industrial complex and arms manufacturers and companies closely tied to American lawmakers. That's why Pakistan operates so much American-made weaponry, from aircraft to missiles to all manner of hardware. Pakistan also gives the United States a sweet geographic toehold near Iran and China and just enough leverage to try and contain India and try to keep India on the back foot. As for Pakistani terrorism, the US has shown it can look the other way whenever necessary. Smaller incidents are shrugged off, like that Pakistani terrorist who's been extradited from Canada to the United States after being caught with a conspiracy to kill Jews in New York. Larger ones like 9/11, etc., as commentator Surya Kanegaonkar says, only serve to justify profitable wars and mass surveillance at home by the CIA and other agencies. India must ask itself the hard questions. Why does the world still humor Pakistan? Why do its generals get more attention in Washington than its elected leaders? Where is Shehbaz Sharif in all of this? But let there be no illusions. We can't be naive about this. No place for outrage, no room for expectations. And nobody should actually even be looking at this as an insult or a snub. This is literally international relations. India must do what it has to do, alone if necessary.
As the Iran-Israel situation heats up and Trump warms up to the idea of joining the Israeli campaign on Iran, what's cooking at the White House? Pakistan Army Chief, humiliated and defeated during India's Operation Sindoor, is headed for a Trump treat. A lunch with POTUS. Here's what's on the menu. So why is Trump rolling red carpet for Field Marshal Asim Munir? While Munir may walk in thinking Turkey, top on Trump's mind will be bases in Pakistan. If the United States decides on going full throttle against Tehran, it will need Pakistan bases for its mission. Pakistan shares 900-kilometer border with Iran, and it will be a perfect logistics base for the United States. US drones and jets could use Pakistan bases for their mission Tehran. US may also see Pakistan nukes and military assets as a leverage against Iran. Trump may also seek out Pakistani leadership to negotiate with Iran leaders. So while it may seem like Asim Munir has scored a point with a lunch date with Trump, it's actually Trump's wish list that will be served to the Pakistani army chief, who will have to swallow his beaten pride and agree to the terms.
So how did General Asim Munir, the Pakistan Army Chief, score this lunch with Trump? Maybe this will jog your memory because it's a bit of a confusing timeline, but here's where it began. On the 10th and 11th of June, there were a lot of media reports saying that the Pakistan Army Chief, General Asim Munir, was to be an official guest at President Trump's parade for the US Army in Washington, D.C. But on the 14th of June, the White House issued an official denying reports of any such official invitation to host Asim Munir at the US Army parade. The very next day, that's the 15th of June, the Iran-Israel conflict escalated. Nuclear sites, as you saw, had been targeted, and this became a real war-like scenario, which is why on the 16th of June, Trump departed the G7 early, the one that's happening in Canada, and the decks appeared completely cleared for some kind of a US intervention, as it became very clear that the next possible attack from Israel couldn't happen alone. Israel needed help from the United States. The same day, experts said the US needs Pakistan bases for any war logistics. If Trump wants to get into the Iran-Israel war, he needs Pakistan, and I will explain in just a bit why exactly he needs them. On the 17th of June, that's yesterday, the White House announced Trump will have lunch with Asim Munir. This was not planned all the way back. This was announced only this morning, that is the 18th. It was the 17th in Washington when this Trump lunch date with Asim Munir was announced. Now let's ask the big questions right now, and these are important questions. I'm sure some of them are on your mind as well. Number one, is the Trump-Munir lunch a setback for Indian diplomacy? I've already told you that Prime Minister Modi had a 35-minute phone conversation with Donald Trump because Donald Trump had left from the G7 early. Therefore, the two leaders couldn't meet. The second question, has India planned for this Trump-Munir proximity because it was announced out of the blue? Has the Iran-Israel war given Pakistan new regional value? We already know that the United States wants to use Pakistan, but has its value gone up as a result of this war? Number four, how does Trump-Munir lunch sit with India-US relations? We hate the idea of being hyphenated with Pakistan, but in the context of what's happening right now, how does this, or does this even affect India-US relations? And finally, number five, could, should, and does India trust Donald Trump? That's, of course, a zoomed out, bigger question. Let's get the experts to answer it. Lieutenant General Syed Ata Hasnain is with us, one of India's most well-known commentators on defense, an army veteran and observer of international relations and strategic affairs. General Hasnain, always good to have you on India Matters. Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to kick it off. In a couple of hours from now, General Asim Munir will be lunching with the US president. I'm sure the Indian diplomatic machine, already used to Trump's brand of diplomacy and politics, would have war-gamed the possibility of something unpredictable like this actually happening. But how do you read this lunch with the US president, sir?
Thank you, Shiv. Actually, Shiv, in the last 10 minutes, I've been hearing your analysis. You yourself are spot on, and I really need not repeat much of what you have said.
No, we need your view, sir.
I'll add one or two issues here.
Yes.
First of all, it reminds you of the famous adage, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. It's all a question of interests. Everything revolves around interests. Having said that, I think we need to add to the list of favors that Pakistanis have done to the United States also the sale of $650 million worth of ammunition, which was sold when Ukraine ran dry of ammunition, when they had fired all the ammunition of Europe, which was available there. It was only from Pakistan finally where it was lifted and taken by C-17 aircraft all the way to Kyiv, and that's how the war was sustained. That's an added point which I wanted to bring. Besides this, the question which you have put is that a failure of Indian diplomacy. I would say, going by that same adage of permanent friends and permanent enemies, why should I classify this as a failure of Indian diplomacy? I don't want to set myself impossible tasks because I know that there is, as you saw yourself said, a realpolitik which is taking place there, right? And putting yourself under pressure with that kind of a thing may be a really unfair one to India itself. The fact remains, the Pakistan-US relationship goes back to CENTO and CETO.
Yeah.
And I will also remind our viewers that if I was in the United States attending a course of instruction as a part of the Indian Army, and I was in a lineup in which there were Pakistanis and Indians, the American general who would walk in and be greeted by us would first shake hands with the Pakistani and not with me, ever. That's because this relationship is now ages old. We are re-establishing our relationship. We are working on it tremendously, but as I said, ultimately it's an interest-based relationship.
Yeah.
We've done well. I think that there is a strategic relationship with the United States which is in the making. And I don't think anything negative has really come out as far as we are concerned. Our Prime Minister has communicated very, very strongly in that 35-minute conversation that he's had with President Trump. He's communicated 5 or 6 very important points which otherwise were not being communicated. And Mr. Trump does not understand India well enough.
General Hasnain, since you mentioned that this is not a failure of politics or diplomacy, look at the breaking news we're getting right now. I want to go straight to it and I'll bring General Hasnain to react on that. Trump has changed his tune after speaking to Prime Minister Modi for 35 minutes on the phone today. A big U-turn by the US president, who last month had tried to take complete credit for the ceasefire after Operation Sindoor. Trump has said it is Modi who stopped the war on the Indian side, but he still says that he stopped the war on the Pakistan side. That part could actually be true, because after all, it was Pakistan that went running to the United States, and then the United States had told Pakistan to get on the hotline and ask for a ceasefire from India. This is Trump taking the biggest U-turn of the season and saying it was India, it was the Indian Prime Minister that caused the ceasefire from the Indian side and stopped the war. Here's President Trump.
Well, I stopped the war between Pakistan. I love Pakistan. I think Modi is a fantastic man. I spoke to him last night. We're going to make a trade deal with Modi of India. But I stopped the war between Pakistan and India. This man was extremely influential in stopping it from the Pakistan side, Modi from the India side, and others. And they were going at it, and they're both nuclear countries. I got it stopped. I don't think I had one story. Did I have one story written about it? I stopped a war between two major nations, major nuclear nations. I don't think I had a story written about it, but that's okay. You know why? The people know. The people know.
So Trump changes his stance after all, and it took a 35-minute conversation with the Indian Prime Minister where he was very mildly told that this is credit that you cannot take. This was something that India imposed on Pakistan, not giving them a choice, and there is Trump giving that credit to the Indian Prime Minister. So big breaking story here on NDTV. General Hasnain, I want to bring you back in on this. That was President Trump saying it was the Indian Prime Minister, it was Modi who stopped the war from the Indian side. This, this arises from precisely what you were saying, sir.
This is exact. I'm so glad that we were not wrong in our assessment at all. We were absolutely bang on that we are setting impossible targets for ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that in the United States, President Trump does not understand India, does not understand South Asia well enough. He has to be advised from time to time. I think Prime Minister Modi has chosen a very opportune moment. 35 minutes of conversation and strongly put across, very, very transparently put across. He didn't hold back his horses at all on this. And I think this is Prime Minister Modi's personal diplomatic success.
Very, very true. And, this conversation that continues, General Hasnain, between India and the US administration, that 35-minute phone conversation was a long one. It was a detailed one. Two leaders who actually enjoy quite a good personal sort of rapport and connection and body language. Trump, in fact, invited the Prime Minister off the cuff. He said, why don't you stop in the United States on your way out of the G7? And the Indian Prime Minister said, I've got things to do. I'm on my way to Croatia. I can't disrupt my schedule, for this trip. But why don't we meet during the Quad meeting? But where does this leave India-US relations going forward? My final question to you, General Hasnain. Are things on an even keel? This is an unpredictable US president we're dealing with.
Absolutely. I mean, President Trump is known for his maverick ways, if I may use that term, not a very laudatory term as such. But having said that, we are fully aware of the fact that Indo-US relations have been on a roller coaster for quite some time. There are bumps which keep coming along from time to time. If you go into the history of the last 30 years, you will come across a fair number of bumps. This is one of those bumps which has come.
Yeah.
I'm sure this whole thing will get restored again. We've had some great strategic agreements with them. And I'm sure once the trade and tariff deal, which is going to be the big thing coming up, once the trade and tariff deal goes through, I think India and the United States are going to be on even keel completely.
General Atta Hasnain, thank you very much, sir, for your time and for helping us understand the story. And I'm actually glad this story broke right here on India Matters, because this is precisely what we were speaking out. It answers that question quite plainly. Trump taking a U-turn. The credit for that ceasefire rests solely with India. Modi stopped the war on the Indian side, and he was the one who convinced Pakistan. That is the subtext of what Trump has said, to ask for that ceasefire, to get on the hotline and call India, which is something that we already knew. So finally, the truth has been affirmed by the US president, who at least so far was trying to take the credit for it. Before I go back to Asim Munir, Ambassador Javed Ashraf also joins us now for an expert view on this, and few better than him on this big breaking story. Ambassador Ashraf, welcome. Sorry to have kept you waiting, sir. The breaking story now, Trump's new words on that ceasefire, which had become a bone of contention as far as India was concerned. After that call with Modi, where the Indian Prime Minister said that it was India's actions that led to that ceasefire and precipitated that ceasefire, it looks like Trump is ready to accept that, and he said it openly as well. What do you think, sir?
I think, Shiv, you're overreading that. First of all, thank you for having me on the show. I listened to President Trump's words. I don't think he's nuancing his statement.
Yeah, he never does.
He is basically saying that there was a U.S. role, but it is Prime Minister Modi who stopped the war on the Indian side. And he also mentioned that the leader on the Pakistan side stopped it too. What he's saying is that he's, in a sense, somewhat of a little play on what he said then, that, he credited then also the leaders on both sides.
Yeah.
His initial statement for taking this very wise step of stepping back, etc. So I think what he saw or what he heard from Prime Minister Modi in that telephone conversation was a kind of very blunt message and I think in some sense as diplomatically as possible an expression of anger at this repeated assertion, which in a sense was also undermining the trust in India-United States relations. So he has nuanced it. I'm not sure he has completely backed away from it. And he's not the kind of a person who is going to let go of credit very easily. Remember that he's got very little to show for his belief that his personal power can shake and move the world. I mean, Ukraine war is actually more lethal at the moment.
Yes.
Israel, which is so dependent on the United States, basically Prime Minister Netanyahu went ahead and did what he wanted to do. He's in fact now joining in a sense. So there are many with China in the trade dispute. It's really the China which seems to be having the upper hand.
Yeah.
So I would say that we take this with a little bit of caution. And why I'm saying this, Shiv, is because I've dealt with this relationship for about more than a decade through a very consequential phase, including on many occasions where India and Pakistan issues were involved. There is something very structural about this. And we should not also overplay or overhype the magnitude or the importance of the relationship. It is a very consequential relationship.
Yes.
But from a strategic perspective, remember, I mean, you've heard that repeatedly from the United States. They treat Pakistan very differently.
Yes.
They do not want to bring Pakistan into India-US relations. They may help you on counterterrorism. They may help you when it comes to preventing a terrorist attack with intelligence information. But they will not sacrifice Pakistan for your sake. They have other interests with Pakistan. You need a rogue in case you are working in a troubled region to be on your side. You need a compliant rogue rather than a defiant rogue. And Pakistan has played that role beautifully, whether it comes to terrorism, Afghanistan, now with Iran, and also in some sense, US trying to prevent Pakistan getting completely in China's clutches at a very strategic location. So they have those interests. On 5th November 2001, Donald Rumsfeld, standing in front of South Bloc, had said very clearly, we need Pakistan for terrorism, we need India for China. Now, what they need India for China is not necessarily mean that they will also help India against China, because the great powers have their own calculations. My sense, my always constant issue is we get disappointed because we invest more than we should in terms of expectations in the relationship. It's a very consequential relationship. It's critical for our national transformation and for our rise as a great power. We need the technology, we need the market finances, resources, intellectual capital, energy, collaboration in certain areas of defense, but not in critical combat areas. Also in building blocks of the digital technology and artificial intelligence and the industries of the future. Focus on that. Keep your objectives very clear on the relationship. And you remember, there is a very fundamental disconnect between a country that believes in unipolarity and a country that is wedded to the idea of strategic autonomy and multipolarity. That incongruity will always be a source of friction. I mean, somebody in the United States asked me, when can you go to war with us against China? I mean, if that is the expectations, a country like India will never be able to fulfill it, and there will be another cost associated with it. So it's a very,
I'm very glad that you've, that you've nuanced that and put that into perspective, because, Ambassador Ashraf, you're right. We do tend to invest a lot of emotions in the India-US relationship in the context of what happens with Pakistan. It's not always easy to separate the two, especially with what has just happened. And I'm so glad that you've put that into perspective for us, and you've been in the trenches of that relationship. So who better than you to put that? I just wanted to pick up on something you said, and I'm going to come back to you on that, and you can expand that point, Ambassador Ashraf, with your permission, which is that President Trump is about to have a lunch with General Asim Munir in Pakistan. This was a lunch that was announced early this morning, so late last evening, by the White House. Trump and the United States do need Pakistan. That is a reality. So let's just quickly, for the sake of clarity, list some of those reasons, and then we'll go back to Ambassador Ashraf. Reason number one, Pakistan shares a 900-kilometer border with Iran. It's a very valuable staging ground for US war logistics. And I'm just talking about the very material things that Pakistan brings to the table right now in the context of Iran and Israel. Reason number two, why this lunch will be happening, US drones and jets could use Pakistan bases to operate from. Reason number three, historic precedent. The US has used Pakistan bases during the Cold War and post 9/11 as well. Reason number four, Pakistan nuclear and military assets provide US strategic leverage against Iran. And reason number five, bargaining chip for negotiations with Iran as well. Ambassador Ashraf, I just listed some of the more immediate sort of material value that Pakistan brings. These are not things that have suddenly emerged. They've always been there as far as the US-Pakistan relationship is concerned. But I wanted to ask you specifically how you're reading this lunch date between General Asim Munir and the President of the United States.
Two very specific points. I think, first of all, you rightly listed out all the strategic concerns, including the fact that Pakistan plays to its vulnerability, too big to fail. A nuclear weapon power, they always hold out the fear that if we collapse as an organized state, then you will have nuclear weapons in the hands of, jihadi forces and the terrorist groups. And that is something that sometimes continues to play very effectively in Western quarters. Having said that, two things, Shay. One, that Americans actually love generals in Pakistan more than the civilian leadership. There is absolutely no doubt. I can recount to you one anecdotal incident. I remember when I was in Washington, D.C., I had, impressed upon the chair of the House Foreign Affairs Committee that when he goes to Pakistan, he shouldn't call on General Kiani, as you don't call on the Indian Army chief. He said that's a brilliant idea to show that we support democracy. He was told by the State Department he cannot go to Pakistan if he doesn't first call on General Kiani. So I'm just giving you an example of how wedded. And why is this so? Because they know that it's only the generals in Pakistan who can deliver for them. So it is a relationship which is based purely on the utility of the Pakistan military to deliver for Pakistan what they want. And you heard that in the State of the Union address from President Trump this January, when he actually praised Pakistan for handing over a terrorist to them. So that's the first point I wanted to make. The second is that this perhaps has taken this relationship to a new level.
Yes.
There have been instances, there have always been US president dropping in on meetings, sometimes even having a Oval Office meeting. General Kiani met President Obama, the great liberal president. But this having a one-on-one lunch is a reflection, of course, of the way President Trump sees the world, completely free from any concerns about so-called liberal values, which may be a very honest admission of something which otherwise the Americans don't normally admit. And the second, of course, is a recognition of the fact that today perhaps, Field Marshal or General Munir is the preeminent power. There have been times, for example, when President Musharraf had reached that level of power and control. I don't think General Kiani, despite his term in office, reached that. But I think General Munir has now acquired, especially after Operation Sindoor and the dysfunctional domestic politics at the moment, a level of power that the United States feels that they need to deal with him at that level, literally like a head of state or a head of government.
Ambassador Javed Ashraf, thank you for your inputs, your analysis of this story. We'll, of course, be tracking that lunch between President Trump and General Asim Munir a little later this morning in Washington, D.C. But really appreciate you helping us navigate and understand this story. of great value to our viewers, which, like I said, it's an emotional time as far as India-Pakistan and US-Pakistan and India-US relations.
I think we need to, be free from that sort of a thing and be more clinical about relationships.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and we'll take your prescription on that, Ambassador Ashraf. Well, meanwhile, Prime Minister Modi, who's on his way back to India, he left the G7 in Calgary, Canada earlier. He's in Croatia today. He returns to India tomorrow, but there were a lot of eye-popping moments in Calgary at the G7, and we've put them all together for you in case you missed them. Here they are.
The Melanie Modi moment, a picture-perfect moment of adulation, followed by a quip that says it all.
As always, you are the best. I'm trying to be a few.
Yes, he's the boss.
Nowadays, you are trying to work with it.
Prime Minister Modi made his presence felt at the G7 summit, albeit as an invitee nation. And on the Canada front too, the first meeting with Prime Minister Ghani saw much ground covered.
Excellency, Prime Minister, it's a great honor to host you at the G7.
From a pull-aside with the EU President to bilaterals with the Presidents of Mexico and South Korea and the German Chancellor, Prime Minister Modi's focus on India's call to action against terrorism and the trade push remained front and center. And as they say, pictures speak louder than words. Modi makes his mark. With Bureau Inputs, Shrishti Shankar, NDTV.
And these are some of the latest pictures coming in from Zagreb, the capital of Croatia. The Prime Minister of India receiving and observing an official state guard of honor in that country before he returns. We'll get you much more on these developments and more right after this break. Stay with us.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola, India's leading AI smartphone brand.
That's huge! That is a biggie! It's out there!
Gold Plus Clear Glass. Par ho ya near, sab kuch dikhe clear.
If it matters to you, if it matters to you, if it matters to you, it matters to India. It matters to India. It matters to India. And it matters to me. And it matters to me.
India Matters with Shivaru. Only on NDTV 24x7. Is your business future ready? Join the 13-week strategic ESG certification program for business sustainability and growth for CXO and business leaders by NDTV, Terry and Zenora. Master global ESG frameworks, gain real-world tools, and lead with impact. Starts July 13th. Enroll now and power your business with sustainability.
As the Iran-Israel war escalates, Indian students in the crossfire.
As soon as possible evacuate किया जाए.
War zone worries grip parents. The next Indian mass evacuation ahead. NDTV at Ground Zero.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
This is very, very unusual. An F-35 stealth fighter of the Royal Navy, that is the British Navy, has now officially been stuck on the ground in Kerala for 4 days and counting. It is part of the world's most costly fighter jet program. The Royal Navy's F-35 fighter, which landed late on Saturday night, was obviously hit by some kind of a snag. We were told that it had suffered a low fuel situation in bad weather, and this aircraft, a stealth 5th generation fighter, each one costing in excess of $100 million, had made an emergency landing in the Thiruvananthapuram airport in Kerala on Saturday night, and it is still there 4 days later, which suggests that something is definitely wrong. We are hearing it could be a mechanical issue, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more, but there continues to be some unanswered questions over this grounded advanced stealth fighter that continues to be at the Thiruvananthapuram airport in Kerala for 4 days and counting. This is a Royal Navy F-35B Lightning II 5th generation stealth fighter that has been grounded in Kerala for 4 days and counting. There is nothing normal about this. But let's be clear. This isn't something to mock. These things happen with complex combat aircraft, and the F-35 is no exception. But behind this stranded stealth jet lies a multi-layered story, and that's why it's my second lead tonight on India Matters. First, this is a product of the most expensive fighter program in aviation history. Over $400 billion have been spent by the United States to develop a machine that still apparently needs a hydraulic fix to get airborne again. Second, it is a timely reminder of how narrow the margins are in naval aviation. Carrier-borne jets, and this F-35 came from the Royal Navy's aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales. They push the limits every time they fly, and faults are always just one mission away. Third, this incident quietly underlines the strong military logistical coordination between India and the UK. India hosting an advanced stealth fighter jet on its soil and assisting with recovery is no small thing. It is very complicated because the technologies on these aircraft are very, very protected and are shared with nobody, not even with India, because it is not an operator or customer. Number 4, this F-35 sitting on an Indian tarmac is also a blunt reminder, my friends, that India still does not possess a stealth fighter and is years away from getting anything remotely close to the F-35. And finally, number 5, it is a humbling view into how fragile even the most sophisticated weapons of war really are. You can spend hundreds of billions or trillions building a cutting-edge fighter, but a simple fluid fault can render it useless like this one and make it unavailable in a conflict situation. So yes, the F-35 may be grounded, but its presence in Kerala speaks volumes about global defense ties, India's capabilities, and the enduring vulnerability of even the most powerful instruments of war.
This sleek, gleaming jet, guarded by an Indian security man, is part of the most expensive fighter aircraft program in history. An American-built British Navy F-35 Lightning II stealth fighter at over $100 million apiece is perhaps the most prized piece of combat aviation in existence. And yet, it has clocked 4 days grounded here at Kerala's Thiruvananthapuram airport. On Saturday night, this advanced 5th generation stealth fighter took off from the Royal Navy aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales, sailing in the Arabian Sea. The pilot, reportedly hitting bad weather and a low fuel situation, diverted his aircraft towards Kerala, making an emergency landing in the state capital at around 9:50 p.m. On Sunday night, the Indian Air Force confirmed the emergency diversion, announcing that help was being extended to the foreign fighter. But 4 days later, the British fighter remains on ground, with no word on what has kept it from flying back. With highly prized and proprietary technology on this jet, making the overall program cost an estimated $2 trillion over its lifespan, it is no surprise that the fighter is being guarded as part of bilateral military engagements. While aircraft groundings aren't uncommon, seeing an advanced stealth fighter sit on the ground while its home deck waits for it off Kerala's coast is certainly a mystery. Bureau Report, NDTV.
And let me just quickly tell you the sequence of events for how this aircraft finally landed up in Thiruvananthapuram. It started on the night of June the 14th at about 8:50 p.m. That is on Saturday. This British F-35B stealth fighter took off from the aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales in the Arabian Sea, where it is deployed. On the same day, 9:20 p.m., about 40 minutes into the flight, the F-35B pilot contacted Thiruvananthapuram's air traffic control, declaring low fuel and requested a diversionary emergency landing. At 9:30 p.m., 10 minutes later, this F-35B landed in Thiruvananthapuram airport and was recovered safely. The same night at 10:30 p.m., the pilot, who's been identified in local media reports as Captain Mike, was escorted from this jet for the routine security procedures at the airport. At about 11:15 p.m., a Royal Navy helicopter, an AW-101 or a Merlin helicopter from the same aircraft carrier in the Arabian Sea, landed in Thiruvananthapuram with a 2-man repair and recovery crew. They remained overnight in Thiruvananthapuram. The next morning at about 11:20 a.m., 6 Royal Navy technicians arrived on another helicopter, but the aircraft's grounding was extended due to mechanical issues that could not be resolved. On June the 15th at about 9:54 p.m., the Indian Air Force confirmed this emergency landing that had taken place 2 nights before and said on the record that it was providing necessary support. On the 16th of June, the F-35B reported to be grounded due to hydraulic failure, and we now have these pictures of the CISF security being extended to this grounded aircraft. The F-35B marks 4 days grounded as we speak right now at the Kerala airport, and as far as we know, the aircraft, we can confirm, is still on the ground. 4 days for a 5th generation fighter aircraft. Air Marshal Sanjeev Kapoor, Indian Air Force veteran and former fighter pilot, is with us. He's also been Director General of Inspection and Flight Safety in the Indian Air Force, and Group Captain Ajay Alawat is also an Indian Air Force veteran and former fighter pilot, both with us. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with me. It's an unusual story, but obviously not something that the both of you have not seen. You know, things can go wrong with aircraft. They can be grounded for a variety of issues. This is an advanced fighter. That's one of the reasons why it has made headlines at this point of time. But Air Marshal Kapoor, I'd like to come to you first. Groundings can happen. Hydraulic failures can happen to even advanced fighters. But 4 days and counting, how do you explain this, sir?
This is a very peculiar snag, which requires, for the benefit of your viewers, this aircraft is manufactured by Lockheed Martin. Now, for Lockheed Martin team to arrive, because if it was that simple, the crew which came from the HMS Prince of Wales by the helicopter could have resolved it. But what I gather from the inputs you have just given, that it may be beyond them. Either the space is an issue, either some tools which are required to access the portions which are inside, because it's a very complex thing. If the fuselage has to be opened, you require certain equipment and tools to access those parts. You require some cranes and jacks to take it up, because hydraulics is linked to most part of the aeroplane, including the undercarriage and other moving surfaces. So what exactly is the snag, I'm not aware. But at times, these kind of things require a lot of ground support. And my guess is that the aircraft repair team will have to be flown in, either from a nearby place, somewhere where the US or the NATO countries operate F-35s with the rectification team. Alternately, if they do not want to open it up and in the open, and because the dust and other things, and they don't want any kind of a scratch or thing, because it's a stealth aircraft, so the external surface too would have to be protected in that manner. They may take an option to, remove it, put it in an aeroplane and fly it out. So these are a few options that exist in my opinion.
Okay. Group Captain Alawat, how are you seeing this, 4-day grounding of one of the most advanced operational fighters in the world today? People have been marveling at it, saying, this doesn't look like any other fighter. We've, of course, explained that to our viewers. It's a stealth fighter, one of the most expensive in history. But for fighter pilots such as yourself, groundings are one of the risks that can happen in military aviation, but this one is particularly serious because it is an advanced fighter, lots of secret proprietary technology just sitting there on the tarmac. How are you seeing this, sir?
Good evening, Shiv, and Capsule, good evening. How are you doing?
Absolutely fine.
See, aircraft on ground is nothing unusual, and even F-35 is nothing new to us. F-35 has visited our shore in Aero India 2023 as well as 2025. The only difference here is this is 35B version. The Bravo version can do the short takeoff and vertical landing. So slightly unique feature for this. So in that sense, that's the only vanity about this. Once a snag, and a snag of a kind that keeps the aircraft on ground for 2 or 3 days has been identified, I'm sure if it could have been fixed, they would have fixed it.
Yeah.
Probably they require jacks or they require specialized equipment that they don't have it here. Those equipment will have to be flown in, and they will have to go through the mandatory customs and clearance, etc., and all that. These things can take time. We have landed one Mirage 2000 with wheels up in a foreign country, and it took us close to 6 months to recover that aircraft. So it depends on the snag. I don't see anything unique or unusual about it. They are playing safe, and which is how it should be done.
Very true. What kind of help can the Indian Air Force extend here, Air Marshal Kapoor? They did put out a statement saying, all recovery and coordination help is being extended. Is the Indian Air Force equipped to, assist in getting this aircraft airborne again? Because we don't operate this aircraft. So how does that work?
I told you, there are a lot of proprietary things.
Yeah.
The Lockheed, the US government will have to give requisite clearances for our crew to work with the Royal Navy team or the people who are operating these aeroplanes. So it has got diplomatic ramifications. And considering the kind of nature and the protected kind of environment in which this aircraft operates, I read somewhere that the pilot didn't leave the aeroplane for about 3 hours in rain. He was just sitting next to till he got the clearance from his embassy, and then he was flown out and the team arrived. So it is, as we can see, it is fitted with weapons. It must be having some internal storage. It must be having a serious snag. Yeah. Otherwise, they would have flown it out the very next morning. Now, if it is on ground for 4 days, Indian Air Force can help. We have enough technical but we don't have people who are qualified on this particular platform. And like Ajay also mentioned, my guess is that it needs some specialized equipment, spares, jacks, and cranes kind of a thing, which need to be brought in. Now the call, they would have to take it whether they would like to repair it in open or they would like to take it into some hangar, whether Trivandrum has some hangar or not. And jokingly for your viewers, Admiral Arun Prakash tweeted that by the time Captain Mike wanted to pronounce Thiruvananthapuram, he ran out of fuel. So that is it might take.
Very, very, very correct. The funny thing also is that the F-35 just this year, after many years of sort of a lot of shadow play between India and the United States, President Trump said that, the F-35 is something that we would like to offer to India. So that's also a bit of a juicy nugget that people should remember while they watch this story. Of course, this particular F-35 that we're looking at is a vertical takeoff version that is operated by the US Marine Corps, the Royal Navy, etc. But Group Captain Alawat, given the sensitivity of the technology on a fighter like this, which would in one way explain why it has been on the ground for 4 days and counting, we of course hope that it is recovered soon and makes its way back to its aircraft deck as quickly as possible, because these are, after all, they belong to a country that is friendly to us and we are extending support. But potentially these things could take a long time. That's what you're saying?
Yes, why it is here, that the answer to that question lies in why did it come here? If it was just fuel, we have fueled it already. It could have gone away.
Yeah.
So probably the snag is something that makes it difficult or impossible for this particular aircraft to recover on the deck. Maybe they are considering a land-based, hops to take it back to the base or wherever they want to take it to. If it could fly, they would have flown it already.
If they could fly it, they would have done so already. Marshal Kapoor, one final question on this particular aspect, but I wanted you to continue to stay with me, is that, I'll try and put that video on our screen. This is the vertical takeoff version of the aircraft, which most people know to be the most complicated version of the aircraft, the one with the maximum moving parts. It's basically a jump jet. And at some point in the past, I remember how the Indian Navy on an unofficial basis was looking at the F-35B, this very same aircraft, as a possible successor to the Sea Harrier that is also a vertical takeoff and landing kind of aircraft. That also adds to the complexity. What has kept it grounded could have something to do with this also, the fact that this is the most complicated version of this aircraft?
Yes. For the benefit of your viewers, I was reading somewhere the operating cost of this aircraft is around $36,000 per hour.
Wow.
Just the operating cost of this aeroplane. It is not the initial cost, that 100 million which you're saying, that is not the cost. It is the Americans have a large amount of things which go around in maintaining and supporting all these things.
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. The maximum moving parts probably in any fighter would be the one which we are seeing now, because to have vector thrust to put it down on a small deck and to do near vertical takeoff and landing requires a large amount of thrust vectoring along with the complications. And I'm sure this would be one such part which they would be requiring it to be repaired because it obviously would be operating through the hydraulic services. So in my guess, it is complex repairing this aeroplane, and the call would be taken in due days by the respective governments. And Indian Air Force has extended proper help. I was seeing the tweet and reading somewhere. So our technical team and our engineers and our test pilots are here to assist, and we have offered the complete thing to the RAF and to the Americans. The call is theirs.
And I'm glad you mentioned, the moving parts and the thrust vectoring. This is that absolutely mesmerizing video of the first vertical takeoff of the F-35 when it was still a prototype. It demonstrates very beautifully what an incredible feat of engineering this aircraft is really all about. Imagine an aircraft of this kind, the heaviest of its class, being able to just hover on literally just exhaust. It's an incredible feat of engineering, and that may obviously hold the answer as to why it is still grounded for 4 days and counting, because these are complicated machines with many moving parts, and these are technologies that are not shared with anyone. Air Marshal Kapoor and Group Captain Alawat continue to be with us because we've got some related breaking news coming in here on India Matters. China, which had announced a few days ago that it would be supplying stealth fighter jets to Pakistan. Well, that story has moved ahead now. We've got a confirmation that China's J-35 stealth fighters made by a Chinese company called Shenyang will be supplied to Pakistan sometime next year. Pakistan is set to get, we are told, 40 Chinese J-35 fighters. China has stealth jets. Pakistan will obviously get them next. That's what the Shenyang J-35 looks like. And it is also a reminder now that the Indian Air Force has no stealth fighters so far. China has them, Pakistan has them, but India is still a distance from getting its very own. Group Captain Alawat, I'll bring you in on that aspect. China is going to be supplying, not surprising at all, its latest 5th generation stealth fighter to Pakistan. And this is, of course, interesting because the F-35 that we were talking about is also a stealth fighter. It's also on offer to India. How do you see this, China supplying these jets to Pakistan, sir?
So Pakistan receiving these jets is not a surprise at all, because their team of nominated fighter pilots have been in China for more than 6 months. They were training on the type before they were inducted. It was reported that the version that China will give to Pakistan is FC-31, slightly toned down version of J-35, which is practiced across the globe. Nobody gives the full. So this is not a surprise. The only surprise element is that they're coming a little ahead of schedule. That's the only surprise. Now, of course, it's a worrying news because ever since independence, we have fought a very hard battle in procurement sphere to retain an edge over at least Pakistan, if not China. And with FC-31 or any version of J-35 in Pakistani colors is going to raise a little bit of concern on our side. Yes, it's concerning, and unfortunately, we have only two bad choices, the F-35 and the Su-57. The only good choice is the AMCA. The only way we can, get past this problem is to give it the national mission mode kind of thing and get it online as soon as we practically can.
Very true. And I just have some graphics that I want to play out for our viewers of precisely what you were talking about. India has no stealth fighters so far. The US has them, Russia has them, China already has them, Pakistan will soon have them, thanks to China. But India is still a distance away from acquiring its own fighters. We'll get that. Okay, there it is. So where is India's own F-35 or J-35? Well, it's not yet in sight. China has the J-20 and the J-35 you can see in that graphic. The United States, Pakistan has the J-35 coming very soon, as we've just told you in our breaking news. The United States has... Russia has the Sukhoi Su-57, which you heard Group Captain Alawat just mentioned. The US has the F-22 Raptor and the F-35 Lightning II, which is an aircraft that is now grounded in Kerala by the Royal Navy. And the AMCA is an Indian 5th generation stealth fighter effort, but that aircraft is only going to come about a decade from now. That's in 2035. Air Marshal Kapoor, I know we're talking about that F-35 that's been grounded in Kerala, but the defense journalist in me also sees this as another reminder that we don't have our own, and our own is a good distance away, and our options are limited.
I had tweeted also, written an article on LinkedIn and others. See, as per the news report, the Pakistanis are likely to get 40 aircrafts by December this year. 9 to 10 years is the official figure by the time we could induct AMCA, our own. There is absolutely no doubt in anybody's mind that we need to have our own indigenous platforms. But as a nation, can we wait for 10 more years with the adversary from both sides having more and better equipment? So the immediate take with which I personally feel that we could go in for about 2 to 3 squadrons of Su-57s with an assurance of transfer of technology to meet this shortfall. It could be a G2G, something like a Rafale kind of a deal, because the Su-57 has a lot of compatibility with our equipment, weapons, radars and other things. And of course, in a lot of other parameters, it is much better than F-35s when you compare. And both these aircrafts flew in Aero India.
That's right.
So I was speaking to certain people who saw both the aircrafts performing. There's absolutely no doubt that F-35 is the state-of-the-art aircraft. But in many ways, when you tick the boxes, the Su-57 ticks more boxes in many ways better than F-35. So in my personal guess, I have no authority at this stage to say, but I personally feel we could go in for a G2G kind of off-the-shelf purchase of Su-57s with an coding kind of an access to us to integrate our indigenous weapons, our own DRDO weapons onto this aeroplane.
Yeah.
With the help of Russians, we could, go and build on this. This will have a lot of benefits.
Yeah.
Our crew, both the air crew and the ground crew, till AMCA comes, will have experience to have worked on these aeroplanes. Also, our team, while AMCA is being produced, can give necessary inputs onto the design and development kind of work, which can go on because we are already operating this kind of an aeroplane in our own airspace. So these are factors which I feel should be considered at the correct level.
Yeah, Group Captain Alawat, last word to you. I have 60 seconds. Go ahead. I see you smiling and raising your hand. Yeah.
Cap sir, I'm sorry, I'm going to completely and absolutely disagree with you. TOT makes sense if we didn't have AMCA. TOT would make sense if we did not have the T ourselves. We have the T. The challenge we're trying to overcome is this gap of 10 years. And if you look at Russia, they themselves don't have a full regiment. They don't have squadron, they have regiment. In one regiment, there are 50 aircraft. They don't have one full operational regiment of Su-57 right now. They haven't produced what they need themselves. We don't need the T because T is our own. We were part of this Su-30 program as Spark FA or 5th generation fighter aircraft. We didn't like what we saw. 350 million we spent and we walked away. There is a lot we know about it and we didn't like it. So if you're filling the gap before our own homegrown fighter gets airborne, we should go for something which is proven. It's a bad choice, but amongst the two bad choices, F-35 is the less bad choice.
It's the truth of the matter is that we are between a rock and a hard place as far as this is concerned. As a purist, I wish that we didn't have to get anything from outside and we could just depend and accelerate the AMCA. But you are both realists. You've been in uniform. You've been in cockpits. So you, of course, speak a different language and I will hear you always. Thank you very much, Air Marshal Kapoor and Group Captain Alawat. This was very illuminating and we wish that F-35 is safely able to return to its aircraft carrier very, very soon. We wish them the very best. Thanks for watching India Matters. Maria comes up next. Ceasefire is on her plate. Trump had a lot to say, but it looks like no ceasefires here in India.
Yes, and that's what politicians are, aren't they? That they are just looking for an issue to question Prime Minister Modi. Hello everyone, this is Left, Right and Centre and I'm Maria Shakil. The big U-turn by Donald Trump after some direct talks by Prime Minister Modi is our top story. Will this end opposition's demand for a special session of Parliament? Is the question that I'll be asking the Congress spokesperson who will be joining me shortly. Our second story is the role reversal in Karnataka politics between the BJP and the Congress on the Amul versus Nandini battle. I'll get you the latest in the investigation in the Meghalaya murder. A new character has entered the crime scene. And finally, the exclusive of Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari. Remember last week, he had highlighted details of what is now the new toll policy. But first up, for the first time since Operation Sindoor, Prime Minister Modi and Donald